Hi everyone, welcome to the History of Football channel. Coming back at you today with another forgotten ground as part of my Forgotten Football Ground series. And tonight, the ground I'll be talking about is Filbert Street, the former home ground of Leicester City between 1891 to 2002. Leicester City were founded in 1884, but in those days they were founded as Leicester Fosse. So early on in the piece, that was the name of the club, and they had several home grounds before finally ending up at Filbert Street in 1891. The first match to be played at Filbert Street was on the 28th of November 1891 when Leicester Fosse lost 2-1 against Loughborough Town. Filbert Street's capacity at time of closure was 22,000, but the ground record attendance was set in 1928 when Leicester City played against Tottenham Hotspur in the 5th round of the FA Cup that year, and 47,298 people attended that game. The record score at Filbert Street also come in 1928. Leicester City beat Portsmouth 10-0, so a bit of a hiding there for Portsmouth. Over its time, Filbert Street didn't have a lot of work done to it. Probably one of the fan favourites and one of the highlights of Filbert Street was the double-decker stand, or the Spion Cop. That was built originally in 1927. In 1940, during World War II, the ground suffered some bomb damage from some of the German planes that were coming over and doing bombing raids of England, and that stand had to be rebuilt. In 1957, floodlights were installed at the ground for the first time, and the first match that they played under floodlights was against Borussia Dortmund. It wasn't until the Taylor Report in the late 80s and early 90s where a lot of grounds around England and in the United Kingdom had to change to all-seater stadiums. And in 1993, the Carling stand was built, which cost the club £6 million. So even in the 1990s, with the introduction of the Carling stand, Filbert Street did look pretty old and dated compared to some of the other grounds that were being built at the time or proposed to be being built. And even Martin O'Neill, the Leicester City manager at the time, he said that he would walk prospective signings out backwards from the Carling stand so they wouldn't have to look at the rest of the ground, because he was kind of a bit worried that if the players turned around and saw the rest of the Filbert Street, that they might renege on signing for Leicester City. So even with the introduction of the Carling stand, the ground did look a bit old and dated by the 1990s, and it looked pretty old compared to some of the other grounds that were being redeveloped or built or proposed to being built. And especially with Leicester City's good fortunes in the 1990s and early 2000s, they won 3 League Cups. They were finishing in the top half of the Premier League. So it was announced that the club was either looking to expand Filbert Street or move out entirely. But unfortunately, Filbert Street really couldn't be redeveloped any bigger because there was housing behind the ground and there was some other issues. So in 1998, it was decided that Leicester City would build a new ground and they would eventually leave Filbert Street. And it wasn't long after that that the ground was sold to developers for £3.75 million. In Leicester City's last year in the Premier League, unfortunately for them, they were relegated, and it was also their final year at Filbert Street as well. The final match at Filbert Street came on the 11th of May 2002. The club beat Tottenham Hotspur 2-1, and Matt Piper scored the final ever goal at Filbert Street. In total, Filbert Street hosted 2,432 matches and 4,700 goals were scored at the ground. As we all know, Leicester City moved into the King Power Stadium. They've been there for nearly 20 years now. And in 2003, demolition work started on Filbert Street and it was knocked down eventually. And there's been a bit of things that have gone on the site since Filbert Street was demolished. There's been some accommodation built for students because there's a university nearby. A couple of the roads have changed names, and one of the ones that runs through the Filbert Street area has been called Lineker Road. Of course, Gary Lineker being one of Leicester City's favourite sons, and he was born and raised in Leicester. So that concludes my video tonight on Filbert Street, the former home ground of Leicester City Football Club. It was also known as the City Business Stadium for a time there. I forgot to mention that, but that concludes my video on Filbert Street tonight. Let me know in the comment section below, are you a Leicester City fan? And if so, do you miss Filbert Street, or was it for the better? Are you happy to be at the King Power Stadium now? Do you think that Filbert Street could have been redeveloped, or do you think that maybe it was for the best that the ground was demolished and that they've moved on to King Power Stadium? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I will be doing another couple of these videos in the future. I'm thinking about doing St Mary's, the Dell, and a couple of others, so stay tuned for those. This has been History of Football. Thanks for watching, and thanks for commenting, liking and subscribing to these videos, and I'll catch us all later in the next one. Alright, tatty bye for now.